Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfiltered UX. This is our second episode for our Unfiltered UX series, which is kind of a podcast type of thing to answer burning questions without any filters. And I'm here with lovely Nina,
Hi, everyone.
who is also an unfiltered person, right?
Totally unfiltered in this setting.
We have to be careful. All right. So this is all driven by you all. So if you would like to send questions to us that we should answer in future episodes, I'll leave the link here and also in the video description. You can click there. You can ask. You can vote for other questions. It's kind of sluggish, the amount of questions we're getting. So we hope we can crank this up a little. And today we have a really complicated question. Is right, Nina?
Our most complicated question yet in the second episode.
Oh my God. So the question you asked us is, why is the UX hiring market such a mess? Why is it such a mess, Nina?
So it is a mess. Let's just accept that first.
Yeah, let's get it out. It's a mess.
It's
Although
really not great.
it's not only UX, right? I think that's important. I always keep repeating that because people feel like their own mess is the biggest
And
mess.
it's not even only tech either. Like there are also industries outside of tech that are experiencing a really difficult market to be hired. So it's a function of the economical climate, I would say, and tech might or might not be hit harder than in other industries.
I agree, but it's tech in general. So it's product development, right? So we know engineers, we know product managers with good track record, good experience, Google experience that struggle to find roles. So it's not UX specific, but it is a mess. Let's just state that like it is a mess. And I think for me it helps to understand. Like there's kind of two whys here, right? One is the why, like basically the description of what the market looks right now, the dynamics and everything. And the other piece is, why did it come to this, right? And I think the second one is more difficult to answer because there's obviously speculation. We don't know all the reasons.
We are happy to speculate as well.
Yes, exactly. Speculating is what we're best at, so we will do that. But maybe let's start with why we are in this situation right now, in the sense of like how does the market look like, and why is it so difficult for people to secure interviews, to secure jobs? As most of you know from our listeners, tech has discovered, I always say it, and I say it like that on purpose, their new passion for laying off people. Because I say passion because they're doing it over and over again, so apparently they're enjoying it. It started somewhere around mid-22 with Meta going first. Amazon was also very close, and then afterwards, a lot of the big players followed, and then smaller ones too. So while before 2022, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and at the beginning of the end of the pandemic, there was an abundance of jobs. Like hiring was crazy. There was just like not enough talent around, and companies wanted to hire more. That's shifted in 22, and then since then it has not gone back to anything reasonable. So we have a lot of people on the market constantly.
And yes, I think it's important to say also, like, the layoffs are one part, right? Like, people have been like thrown into the market out of jobs, but at the same time, because there was such a demand for talent, more and more schools had also started like offering education, offering degrees in the field, educating people who have now gotten their degrees and who at the same time, in larger numbers than before, came into the market looking for jobs as well. So on one side, it's the layoffs, the kind of like constricting the amount of jobs that companies had in that field, and at the same time, it's also more people graduating in from courses, from schools.
That
have
totally
to work in UX.
it's like kind of supply and demand problem, which I hate saying that way because we're talking about people, but it is like supply like of job, like demand of jobs and supply in a sense of workforce. And for the listeners to understand the dimension we're talking here, right? I mean, we, Nina and I, we were at Google when we were at the top of the hiring madness, right? And there were like times, it was like 21, beginning of 22, where, for instance, we would have Meta offering a senior engineer, so not like super senior, like just 5 years of experience, 40% pay increase to join Meta, right? And so
40% over what they were earning.
what they were already earning, and they were already earning well, right? So it was this competition for talent, and this amount of headcounts that teams were given when I joined Play in that was in 22. We were given like UX was given the headcount to basically double in size, right? And so there was actually like a major amount of time went into planning hiring, like figuring out who do you need, where do you need, how do you find them, interviewing, all these things, right? So it was madness. And that's why also many universities, but also private companies started to spin up these courses, certifications, boot camps, all these things, because there was this demand, and you could find as a person that was in not in exactly in a UX role, but maybe it was like close to that, and you get a training and you could find a job. So it was really nice. I had like people that I'm coaching who said like in the past they never had to apply for a job; they always fell from the sky, right? Or I would say like I sent in 10 sloppy resumes, I would get eight interviews and 5 offerings, right?
Yeah.
Those were nice times, but they're over now, and I'm not sure they will ever come back. And maybe it's also good that they won't come back because it was kind of like exaggerated. It was also not sustainable due to many reasons, but that's not really the question here. So let's not go in there. But yes, so we went away from that. Companies stopped this. And the reason why they stopped this and they went into layoff mode, we can speculate afterwards in this session here. But let's just say they did that, and they inundated the market with people that are looking for jobs. And so the competition when you apply for a job is insanely high, right? There's no exact numbers, but I would estimate easily 10 or 20 fold compared to the past.
And at the same time, obviously, the other side, like the employers, right? They have changed their mindset as well. Like the situation that you described before, in 22, right? Like when we had all that open headcount and we didn't have enough talent in the pipeline to fill all of those openings. The mindset was very much like, we're going to compromise. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to offer them crazy amounts of money. We're going to make it super easy for them to change location, for example, by supporting visa processes. And we're going to we're going to do a leap of faith, even when we see they have like things that they're not good at yet, they don't have experience with. They're going to learn that on the job. That was kind of like the mindset of employers back then. So really this understanding of like, we have to take what we can get, when now that is flipped in the complete opposite, and it's almost like employers are in payback mode about like, we had to kind of like invest a lot into talent back then. Now we're not willing to do that anymore. Like, we're looking for very, very specific profiles, very, very specific combinations of experiences. And if you don't tick all of the boxes, we're not interested. We know that there's enough talent out there that's going to fill what we're looking for.
Which
that's a very stupid mindset, in my opinion.
Yes, I hope they will pay the price for it. But it is true. It's not only that, it's also like it comes along with this different mindset on how to treat candidates, right? Because you could say, well, we're targeting very specific profiles that are very granular, and so a lot of people who are really good talent we will not even look at because they lack, I don't know, we want 2 years of experience in crypto and you don't have that, right? So we will not look at you. But it's also kind of like the way they treat candidates, like not responding, not even sending a rejection, ghosting people at any moment in the process. With ghosting, I mean, so for the listener, ghosting is when you already had a contact, a relationship with a recruiter. Not when you send in your resume and you don't hear back. That's just not sending a rejection, which is also not okay. But the moment you have actually a connection, a communication channel, you should at least get a rejection. So ghosting is when you don't get that. There's just no more responses happening at all phases of the process, including people signing contracts and not hearing back from people. Like that crazy, right? So it's like basic human decency that is missing, and which cannot be explained with, oh, they're like spread thin. They have a lot of work, right? You can have canned responses and you can send those out, right? It's not a lot of work. It's just, but that is a side effect. So you have this huge amount of people with a lot of experience, with good education, competing over the jobs that are out there. And there are jobs out there. It's not like companies are not hiring, right? There's a lot of jobs out there. But if you have a lot more people applying, then that leads to this problem. And then you have, in addition to this, we're in the area of AI. So you have people using AI to mass apply to jobs. So the quality of applications that recruiters get has gone down massively in the last couple of years. So when they post a job, just recently spoke with a hiring manager from a company like UX design hiring manager. She said, when we post a role 2 days, we have 3,000 applications, and that was not a FANG company. And she said like 90% out of those are flat out direct rejects because they are not even close to meeting any of the criteria, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, and the problem is when you get 3,000 applications, you need somehow to filter them to get down to a reasonable number. You will have loss because you will not aim for precision, right? So you will use very rough criteria to just filter out. And so it can be that good candidates will be filtered out because your criteria are not perfect. And and that's okay for the employer because it will still have enough people that are good candidates left, right? But it's obviously not okay for you because if you get the rejections despite being a good match, that's very frustrating. So is that why? Is there anything else? Why is the job market a mess? Well,
I think it's also like the reaction, right? Like AI, I think we didn't mention before, like there's one is there are more people who are educated in the field now and who are coming in the market. There's layoffs that push people back into the market applying for the same roles as the grads sometimes. And then there's the entire thing of AI where it's twofold, right? Like one is companies feel like they can cut costs. They let people go as well because of AI, and
don't say let people go. I hate it when people say that. Letting go sounds like you're doing something nice. It's like, oh, I let you go. I'm being kind to you. Like, how did they manipulate us to say it that way? Like, it's not something
really
nice.
scary, right? How language changes.
Yes.
Well.
So I think laying off people is the softest that I can accept.
Okay, so they fired people.
Yes.
Do it properly, right? So they think that with AI, they need less people. They open less roles and they cut roles that are there already. And that's a very short-sighted kind of like greed reflex, right? They don't understand AI oftentimes well enough. And that's why they think AI can do what people are doing in the moment. And so they're cutting those costs. But then there's also companies who very obviously understand AI because they are working with AI, they're producing AI solutions and they are selling them, right? And they still let people, they fire people because they feel like they need to send a signal that they are prioritizing AI. They want other companies and other players to believe in AI as well. And so they have to kind of like overplay what AI can already do. And that's why they are signaling like by letting people go, AI is already really great and can do a lot of things that they know AI can't do. But also it signals that they are taking AI very seriously as a bet in their company, and they are reserving financial resources for AI. They're spending money on data centers, and they take that money out of other areas of their business to signal to stakeholders and to shareholders. We are a serious player in the area of AI. And so
Correct.
that also leads again to
Yes.
not just them being passionate and happy about doing layoffs, but it leads to other rounds of layoffs because of their need to send those signals.
And so if you take a high level look at the market right now, it is difficult for everyone because of the competition. And then there's specific groups of people where it's even harder than for the general population. For instance, if you don't have a work visa for the place that you have to find a job in, you're screwed, right? If you're like in the US on an H-1B and you lose your job, you need to find a company that sponsors the H-1B. And most companies have stopped doing that because they feel there's enough talent around that has the right work visa. They require no sponsorship, so it's cheaper, it's faster. So they're not even looking into your application. If you want to move to a country where you need a visa sponsorship, it's the same, right? So that group is even harder. No matter what kind of experience you have to be like a super distinguished, very rare to find talent to for a company to go like, yes, of course, we'll sponsor this visa. Another group where it has become really difficult is new grads, like because a lot of companies are cutting down junior roles because they think junior jobs can be replaced with AI, which makes no sense. And I can explain that why it makes no sense, right? So if you hire a junior researcher, right, that researcher is junior because they lack experience, right? They don't lack the knowledge to do something, they lack the experience to do something. So let's say you come from university, you have learned how to do a diary study, but you've never done it. That's why you're junior. You will do your first diary study, you will learn how to do it, you will get some mentorship, you will become better over time. Eventually, you're a senior. You know how to do these diary studies faster, both in execution and analysis. So the diary study cannot be replaced with AI. And if it can be replaced with AI, it can also be replaced at a senior level, right? Because if AI can do a diary study, they can do it no matter what, right? So it's the tasks that junior researchers do are not dumb tasks. They're not stupid automate things that are that you can automate easily, but there is a lack of in-depth understanding of companies about what actually makes a role junior. And it's the same with coding, right? Coding, so they think like, okay, we replace engineers that are junior because AI can create that code. The code will be broken, it will not work, but I have a senior person that looks over that and fixes the problems, right? Now, that again is a misunderstanding because also senior people make mistakes, and also junior people can detect problems. And if you want to have a senior engineer, they were junior one day. so
senior, true.
we will run out of seniors if we don't train juniors. But
but I want to hook into that because that goes back to what I said before about like employers also being stupid if they look for those very, very specific profiles, right? Because that also pertains to people who come in from other fields. Juniors and people who have been working in other roles or in other industries before, they bring a unique perspective that is usually not on the product team in the moment. And those inputs, those new ideas, those new ways of looking at things, they've been super important in my experience with products. When people came in who had that new perspective, that's when things went into new directions and when like we came up with better solutions, right? So what is happening now with like people not employing or not hiring juniors and not hiring people that are transferring or pivoting their careers is that we're becoming, again, much more homogeneous in our teams, and we lack this multitude of perspectives and ideas, and it's kind of like making product teams poorer and less.
I agree. Yeah, and we're reducing diversity.
Yeah,
right? We're reducing diversity in thinking and acting and approaches, and
that's of course also something that's happening, right? Like especially in countries where now DEI is not really well regarded anymore, the other people outside of people without visas and without experience that are going to be hit by that are people who have different
Minorities.
needs from what we think is cool, right? Like parents, people who take care of families, people with special needs. Those are all going to be the people who are not going to be visible in product teams anymore as a result of what is going on politically outside and inside of companies in some countries.
Absolutely, and including like obviously other minorities like religions, sex, gender, like all these factors. So there's specific groups where it's even harder, and that's in general. If you look at that, it's just that's why it's a mess, right? So if you're frustrated, you're sending in your application, you're not getting traction, you're not getting even rejections, or you're being ghosted along the process, or you're getting rejections in the process, right? And you get frustrated, totally understandable, but just know that it's not your fault, right? Like this situation that we're in has not been created by you. Obviously, that's not helpful, right? Because you have skills, you have experience, like you're good in what you do, right? But the competition is high, and that means you need to amp up your game in how you apply. And even if you do that and you play your best cards and you're really throughout the process doing a good job, you will still get a lot of rejections.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it's like you do still have agency. There are things that you can do, but you need to know that right now the market is a mess and that you need to adapt your mindset to know it's going to take longer than it would have 4 years ago.
Yeah, a lot longer. Yeah.
You will have to put in a lot more effort than you would have had to put in 4 years ago. But that effort is not wasted. Like you are increasing your chances. It's not random. It's not completely random. Like you do have control over a lot of the factors that play into whether or not in the end you are going to get an offer or not.
So now let's speculate, or let's go a little bit into why we even ended up in a place where companies started to discover the passion for laying off people. To our listeners, like some of this is obviously speculation. Some of it is like people have written about this, so you might have read about it, right? But one important factor that is that during the pandemic, tech, so people were at home, and a lot of people were using technology, were online a lot, and a lot of money went into online services, and at the same time, money was free. Many banks had like almost zero interest rates, so companies were able to pick up money for free. Like in Switzerland, even for our listeners that are not from Switzerland, we had negative interest, which was bananas. So you would like if you have money on the bank, you would have to pay interest on your money, so it would like get less over time. But that's very specific to Switzerland. Most countries had zero or next to zero interest rates. And so companies like Google, Meta, and others were picking up money for free, right? Even obviously they had money. Like Google had a lot of cash on the side, but they wouldn't touch that. They would just like get money and hire people. And so hiring people was almost free, right? You could just hire and add more. And it led to what I would call an almost irresponsible way of hiring, right? Because in unsustainable ways, I remember flagging this internally over and over again, where I said, you cannot grow over 20% year over year as an organization, because it will have a negative impact on efficiency, on culture, on just like throughput of things, right? Because if you hire people, that's not free. You have a significant amount of people engaged in hiring of your organization, and you have to onboard new people all the time, right? And then you need to figure out what to do. And so scaling at that velocity, so I say it's better for you to scale over 4 years 5% than in 1 year 20%. But maybe I'm just conservative. I'm just old school Swiss. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's just like, let's do things. But that's the thing, right? And so that's why companies like in tech, they were having a lot of revenue because of the pandemic. People were not able to spend their money outside, so they spent it online. A lot of money was flowing in. Money was free. They were hiring a lot. They didn't really have to think, and they thought it would last forever. which is
Because
bad
they wanted
leadership.
to believe that, right? Because it was so nice. So they switched
Super
off their
nice. Yeah.
brains that would have clearly told them, no, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Like that's a pandemic. At one point, it's going to be over. Everyone knows
Absolutely.
that, but we
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
to know.
And to me, a side note, this is madness, right? Because this is bad leadership, right? If you're the CEO of a company, of a large company or a medium company, right? And what is your job? Your job is to set the vision, to foresee the future, and to set up your company to face the challenges of the future, right? And and you're getting paid a lot because
Yeah.
you are so smart and so wise that you can do that, right? And if you then during the pandemic you think this will last forever and you hire like there's no tomorrow and you spend like there's no tomorrow, and then suddenly it changes. You did not foresee the future and you should be fired. I think you should be fired because you were not worth the money, right? But it's not up to me to
But the
decide that.
easy
So
strategy is to fire those people who witnessed you doing your job badly, right? And make the
yeah,
other ones
exactly. Yeah.
so scared.
It's dangerous.
They're not going
Yeah.
to speak up.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's
So
how you create job safety. I think,
exactly. Yeah. They stay there forever. It's always the small ones that have to pay the price. It's not the big fishes. But I guess that's just how the world is. So when that changed, right, and when money, so when people went back, when left online, money went away from online into the real world, and at the same time, inflation kicked in. So if you're looking at it like things started to become more expensive, inflation kicked in. So what did the banks do? They increased the interest rates to fight inflation. So the era of free money ended. So suddenly companies had to go like, oh, do we actually spend like finance this growth with our cash pile we have, or do we spend less? And they opted for spending less by firing people because at the same time AI came in, and AI required a lot of investments into staff and into hardware, into capacities and data centers, right? So it was like, I mean, that it was communicated pretty much that way at Google, right? That we are readjusting our investments because you don't say we're firing people. You say we're readjusting our investments to equip ourselves for AI. And to say it in more direct words, we're firing people so we can build data centers, right? And so many companies went in that direction. They started to first they stopped hiring and then they started to lay off people. And so that's how we moved into this new area of hiring madness.
lovely.
Yeah. Should we end on that negative note? No. We need to be
That would
positive, right?
clearly prove that it's not AI generated content, because apparently that's how you spot like real life content is it can end on a negative note. AI doesn't manage to do that yet.
Oh yes, it always ends positive.
So
So
full stop.
still, we're a positive bunch of people, and we're here to help people in UX, right? So will this last forever? Is a question I get a lot. Like, when will this end, right?
Yeah.
And the honest answer is I have no idea. I don't think it will last forever, but I don't know when it will end. I thought it would have ended by now, but as you can see, like there's over and over again people laying off. We just had in the last couple of weeks. We had Google again laying a lot of people. Amazon 14,000, right? And so every time these kind of large scale layoffs happen, you have new people coming into the market. And so the market needs to have some time to absorb people on the market for the pressure to get lower. If companies keep on pumping people into the market, then this will continue, right? So if we move into an area where companies stop doing that and where they start like rebuilding their capacities, then it will over a longer period of time, because it will take time for the market to absorb so many people. And I have no idea how long this will take, but it will get better, right? But as long as companies don't stop the layoff madness, we're going to be stuck in this situation.
Yeah. I think an additional problem, obviously, is also that we are very much tied to the economic reality, right? What's happening in the industry. And we do have a risk of some companies' net value in the moment dropping significantly. in the near future. And that is going to affect how companies hire again, because those are usually the times also when they are not really the most risk happy and like investment happy and creating jobs. So that might be a factor as well. So regardless of like how that is going to pan out, I know the economy and internal policies are following like those waves where like sometimes the economy is up and like a lot of hiring is happening, and then it goes down and there's less hiring, but then it goes up again, right? And what I've seen in my 20 years in tech so far is that hiring internally is following those same curves, right?
Yeah.
There are times when there's a lot of open jobs, there's a need for more talent, and then that talent is educated and more available. And right now, that coincides with like less jobs being available. But I'm very optimistic that we're going to have more jobs opening and more people finding employment again as well. But I think what we're learning from this new trend in tech that is layoffs, right? That wasn't really so prevalent before. It always happened. We always had layoffs in some companies, but we were not really exposed to a lot of that compared to other industries. Like in gaming, for example, layoffs are just something that's basically a cyclical thing, almost like the times of years, right? Seasons. You know that this is going to happen. You know already while you're at uni and being educated for your job that this is going to be your reality. And I think we need to adapt to that more, not just in UX, all across tech. And probably also in a lot of adjacent fields. I think we should not embrace because that sounds positive, but like accept that this is something that is going to happen regardless. Like now the box has been opened, right? Like this is now a tool that is acceptable for some reason. I think that's not a good thing, but it is there. Companies in tech have now discovered that they can do that and that they can change the bottom line and they can change how they look to shareholders short term with layoffs. And they are going to continue doing that no matter whether they need to or not. And so we as employees need to accept that this is happening and be prepared for it and change how we think about employment, how we think about our connection, our dependence on income streams, and do what we have been taught to do with our finances in general and diversify, right? Look at like how can we prevent a complete upheaval in our lives if something like that happens, because we're already prepared for it, not just in terms of like having our resumes and our portfolio up to date, but also in terms of like having thought or spun up alternative income streams, for example.
I agree. Yeah. And also rethinking your relationship to the employer, not letting your employer become part of your identity, building up your own brand, not giving your employer any kind of loyalty because you know you're not going to get it back. So times of one-sided loyalty are over. You need to focus on you and your family and make sure to be prepared when that happens, because at the end, I think we're living in a time where this will happen to all of us eventually, right? It's like you're going to be laid off potentially a bunch of times in your career, and you should no longer be surprised, right? It was okay to be surprised in 22 and 23, right? Because tech was not engaging in that kind of behavior, at least not at a large scale. But now you can no longer be surprised. You need to be planning for this. And I think it's personally, I find it really frustrating that it's that way, because I think job security is the foundation for everything.
Yeah.
For psychological safety and for everything that builds upon psychological safety, which moves into a peak performance and everything. So it is very difficult, and it will be very difficult for companies to get the same kind of out of performance out of their employees like in the past, because employees will no longer be motivated to perform that way, and the significant amount of their energy will also go into being prepared for when they're laid off, right? And to think about alternative revenue streams and take preventive actions and all these kind of things. So the times where we could have really safe teams where everybody felt like they can be at their best and they can take risks and it's not going to be held against them, and together they can achieve things. Those times are over for the moment, right? And that makes me sad as a leader.
Right? In general, I think. But I think there we have our positive note, because I think this is actually an opportunity for employers to make psychological safety and like make a focus on not doing this kind of stuff, their unique selling proposition for employees when we're going to get back into a market where they are going to have to compete for that talent to join their companies. People will remember, right, how employers behaved during those times now.
Yes. And imagine, we can dream, right? Imagine you're an employer who says, one of our principles is that we don't lay off our folks, right? Mm-hmm. We take care of our employees because we think they're important. We don't get engaged in the layoff game, right? Maybe we hire more carefully, right? But we're not laying off people just for the sake of it. We are hiring junior people, right? Mm-hmm. We're on purpose investing in junior folks because we think that's important, right? A research director I know in Europe says whenever she has open roles, and she posts junior roles, because the amount of insane talent you find that is eager for a job and that will give everything afterwards once they found a job, because they're so thankful that they have the opportunity, is just paying out double, right? So imagine you're a company where you go like, okay, we will go against those like fashion streams, and we will make it part of our DNA that we are different, right? Not only will that be heard now, but it will be remembered later. Mm-hmm. So if you're a listener and you are in the situation where you can influence how your company operates, the two unimportant Astrolabian people, Nina, Javier, things, you should do that because you will get a return for it.
And you get like loyalty, right? You will have employees who stay and who give their everything for decades, which is obviously not something that we recommend for the companies that are engaging in the layoff game in the moment.
Yeah.
Don't be loyal there.
I agree. All right. Oh my God, we have 38 minutes already. So it's always so nice to speak with you about these topics, Nina. But let's try to bring it to an end here. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have more questions that we can use for future episodes, again, there is the link where you can go and leave your questions. You can vote for questions from others. It's also in the video description. You can always subscribe to our Substack, where we share these episodes and other content around UX and the UX job market. And yes, thanks for listening in.
Lovely talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.